Maxey from outside. Sixers lead, courtesy of Tyrese Maxey.
Deep to left field, going back is Locastro. It is gone!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beef Upfront podcast with your host, Ryan Coyle. As always, continuing on today with our college football preview series, just counting them up. I've done, after this one, there'll be 19 episodes so far going through the biggest names in all of college football, and we still got about 10 to 15 that we're still looking to hit before week one starts up. This is the team that will actually be kicking off the 2024 season in week 0, 10 days from today, recording this on Wednesday the 14th. These guys, the Florida State Seminoles, will be kicking off the 2024 season over in Dublin, Ireland against Georgia Tech at noon Eastern time in 10 short days. Really, really, really looking forward to that. It's definitely the headliner of week 0. The other games are New Mexico versus Montana State, Delaware State, Hawaii, and SMU, Nevada. SMU, Florida State, Georgia Tech, really the only three kind of nationally relevant teams in there. We'll see what Hawaii brings to the table this year. But Florida State, one of the more polarizing stories of the entire college football playoff 4-team era, at least, goes undefeated last year, wins the ACC regular season, number 1 overall, undefeated. Wins the ACC title against Louisville, but Jordan Travis gets hurt in the second to last game of the regular season. He goes down. The committee holds him out. They go on to lose a bowl game to Georgia 63-3. Them getting left out and Alabama going in with a loss was, highly scrutinized. I on one side was a person that I had Florida State. They were my national title pick to begin the year. I had them at 20-1 to win it all. So I was feeling great, going through the season. I thought they could play. They could hang with anyone. Then Travis goes down, and I think it's a different story. You don't put that team in over a team like Alabama that was playing really well down the stretch, or even if you put Georgia in ahead of them at that 4 spot, I wouldn't have had a problem with that either. Florida State, at the end of the day, should not have been in the college football playoff with Jordan Travis out. They were a completely different team. But we turn the page to this year. Mike Norvell last year had a breakthrough year at Florida State. He's now 31-17. Entering year number 5 there. It's hard to believe he's already entering year 5, but last year, year 4, was hot seat year, I think, going into it, and it was a breakout year. I think the year before, they were only like 7-6, and last year they go 13-0 regular season, lose that bowl game to Georgia 63-3, but he's 69-33 in 8 years as a head coach. His name was floated around with the Alabama job as well. I think he was one of the guys they were going after with Lanning, and then ultimately landing on DeBoer. But Florida State enters the 2024 season as the number 10 team. I'm not as high on them as I was last year, but we'll get into the entire story with this team. We'll go into a little bit more depth about their season last year, the offense, the defense, and then my schedule prediction for this squad for the upcoming season. But as I said, enter as number 10 in the AP poll, coming off that 13-1 breakout year, 8-0 in the ACC, beat Louisville in the ACC championship, even without Travis. Then they go to the bowl game and they play Georgia and they lose 63-3. A lot of guys opted out. No Travis played. And Georgia kind of went full-fledged after being left out of the playoff to go try and prove a point. They go and beat, the corpse of that really good Florida State team from throughout the year. I really do think at any team in the country, Florida State could have played with. If they had to play Michigan in the playoff, if they wound up playing Washington or Texas or whoever they might have ran into, I don't know if they would have won those games, but I certainly thought they would have gave them a game, and they were my national title pick going into the year last year. I thought the breakout year was coming. I think another team in the conference that we touched on earlier this week in Miami might be a little bit similar to what Florida State was last year. But I still think Florida State is certainly going to be up there competing for the ACC title. I just don't know if it's theirs this year. They were a dominant team last year. 10 of their 13 wins were by double digits. Last year's roster, too, had 6 players that were selected in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. So that just goes to show you that the level and the depth of talent that they had, and especially with the guys that they're bringing back to, it's a really strong roster again. The defense last year, I think, was, for how good the offense was, the defense was even stronger, in my opinion. Held opponents to 20 or less in 10 games as well. Super balanced team, though. I think Travis at the quarterback spot. Like I said, fully healthy Jordan Travis after he went down with that ankle injury. Season kind of went out the window from there. But I think if he was playing and when he was playing, he could have given that Florida State team could have given anyone a game. So this year's team only returns 8 total starters on offense and defense, 4 on each side of the ball. But that was from a team last year that was that 19th ranked scoring offense and 18th ranked scoring defense. So really strong team last year. And I think some of the numbers also kind of took a hit towards the end, like, letting up 63 points to Georgia with half your guys basically opting out. The offense was really stagnant down the stretch without Travis as well. So much of that offense was predicated on kind of his mobility. He was really good at throwing the football. He proved throughout the season last year, but also was a really good rusher and just being able to create plays on his own. So some of the statistics certainly took a hit in those last few games without him in the fold. I don't think all these statistics tell the full picture. But when you look at the offense for the 2024 season, as I said, the offense took a hit statistically when Travis got hurt, but also just scoring the ball as well. A completely different team. They only put up 24, 16, and 3 points in their 3 games without him. And he was really good, Jordan Travis, at taking care of the football with a 20 touchdown to 2 interception ratio. I think this year it is a pretty substantial downgrade, and why I'm lower on Florida State for sure this year than I was last year. And last year, as I said, it was really high on them, my national title pick at the beginning of the year. But I think it's definitely a step down and a downgrade going to DJU to take over at the quarterback spot now. His accuracy has proven to be a real issue in college, has never been above 66%, I believe. But last year only completed 57% of his passes. He just really is like so much of like a hypothetical type of quarterback for me. Like, oh, he's got all the size, he's got the arm and everything. But has he really proven to be, a national championship level quarterback? Sure, he's a solid college quarterback. Goes out there, wins 8-9 games a year. But is he the guy that could go out there and win you a game when you need it? Like when you look at the great quarterbacks and you're like, okay, wow, that I feel confident. Like the ball's in his hand. We need to go the length of the field, score a touchdown to win this game. Are you confident in that in an ACC title game with DJ leading you down the field, or in the game against Notre Dame, or in the game against Miami? Like, I don't look at DJ and feel comfortable and confident in saying that. I felt a lot more comfortable and confident in saying that with Jordan Travis. And the main reason is the accuracy issues with DJ, only completing 57% of those passes last year. This team has a lot of playmakers and a lot of speed and some guys that are going to play on Sundays. But how good can they be if they aren't receiving, accurate passes? And if not even just receiving them, but DJ could just be completely missing them as well. We've seen him have a lot of errant throws, and errant throws at times lead to turnovers as well. And we talked about with Travis, only 2 interceptions all last year. He did a really good job of taking care of the football. Wide receiver room also loses 2 NFL draft picks from last year in Keon Coleman, who's looking like he's probably going to be the Bills' #1 receiver. And then Johnny Wilson, who's been one of the Eagles' kind of camp stars and looks to be competing for snaps this year, probably as a rookie, as like their 3rd wide receiver. Those 2 guys combined for over 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns last year. So from an offense that averaged 34.5 points per game, they have a lot of turnover at the skill spots. Also starting running back Trey Benson out the door in his 14 touchdowns as well. So a lot of production to be made up for. But the offensive line returns 3 starters from last year. DJ has a lot of experience at QB, and even the guys that are stepping in to start on the O-line at Florida State that weren't starters last year have played meaningful snaps for them. That was a team that was really deep on the offensive line last year, and that was one of the reasons why I really liked them. This year, those guys that were kind of depth pieces are stepping up into starting spots this year and returning 3 starters as well. But we talked about it with DJ, where I'm not the biggest fan of his. I don't think he's a championship level quarterback, but still a really good, solid college quarterback that, Florida State with everything around him should feel comfortable winning, bare minimum 8 games. But I do think the ceiling for this team is like 10 wins. I just don't think he has the capability to really bring this team over the top. I was saying this at the beginning a little bit, but he's kind of like the hypothetical, like a Joe Milton type of quarterback where he has all the gifts and tools. He's been given the opportunities. Joe Milton had the opportunities at Michigan, transferred to Tennessee, got benched, then got the chance at Tennessee again. And he's still in the NFL, the hypothetical, the great arm, the athleticism, the mobility. But he really struggles with completing passes. And at the end of the day, that's the name of the game. DJU, main struggle is his accuracy. I don't care about his frame, his arm. If he's unable to complete passes at an efficient, high level, that's really going to hurt this team and the ceiling of the offense. But you got some good receivers to work with. If you kind of just put the ball in their area, they're going to make plays. Malik Benson, Hakeem Williams, Kentron Portier, and Jaquez Douglas figure to be the main 4 options there in the passing game. There's plenty of talent and speed in that room. It's just whether or not DJ can get it to him in an efficient manner or not. Running back room, really dangerous and deep. Lawrence Tolafili and Roydell Williams. These are 2 guys that are a little bit different players. Roydell Williams transferring in from Bama. They're expected to be the main 2 guys, but there are a few young guys in the wings as well. I look at this FSU offense as being able to run the ball better than they did last year. They only ran it 150 yards per game last year, so that was 76th best in the country, so, a little below average. I think this group has some more guys in the backfield. Benson's a good player, solid player, but I think this group has a little bit more speed and upside in the running back room. I think the rushing game gets bumped up this year, but I really do think DJ caps the overall ceiling of this offensive attack and the passing game potential. Now, when you go to the defense, while I'm hesitant to fully believe in the offense, the defense should be plenty good this year, and you should be plenty excited about them if you're a Florida State fan. Despite returning only 4 starters from last year's team, this is a really talented and deep team. Did some major work in the portal, bringing in former 5-star Marvin Jones Jr. as he transfers in from Georgia. His father, a former FSU standout as well. He forms, I think, the best pass rushing duo, at least in the ACC, maybe even the country, with Patrick Payton. Patrick Payton had 7 sacks and 14.5 tackles for loss a season ago. Those are 2 high-level edge rushers that are going to be most likely, day 1, day 2 NFL draft picks once they go to the NFL draft. They replaced Jared Verse, who was a first-round pick to the Rams this year, but those are 2 guys that can really get after the passer. That pair of pass rushers is going to really keep offensive coordinators and offensive coaches up on opposing staffs at night, thinking of ways to kind of prepare for them. Joshua Farmer as well returns at interior lineman. That's going to be a really good defensive front. Clemson is always good up front. Miami has a really good front. But this Florida State defensive front, I think, upside-wise, potential-wise, could be the best of that entire bunch. The linebacker spot on the defense is the area of concern with not a lot of experience returning. The names that are expected to be in the rotation are DJ Lundy and Blake Nicholson. But this defense was really strong against the pass last year. The secondary was arguably the strong suit of the entire team. Only allowed 179.7 yards per game through the air. That was 11th in the country. Azir Thomas had 10 pass breakups last season, and is back. And Fentrell Cypress is back at cornerback as well, and safety Shaheem Brown. There's guys that have played a lot of snaps, a lot of big boy football, and we're part of, a championship winning team. So this defense is deep and in the secondary especially, and has guys that have played, meaningful games and have gone against some top flight competition. Charles Lester III is a guy to watch out for as well that I've been reading up on. Top 50 player recruiting-wise in the 2024 class. He's in the mix for some playing time as well. But the defensive front should dominate most games, and with a really strong secondary as well, it's going to be tough to beat this team deep. I think the main area of concern is kind of just underneath with the linebacker play. Is the linebacker play good enough to bring this team back to the ACC championship and win it again? I think that's one of the major things that's a question mark for this team right now, alongside the inconsistent play of DJU at quarterback. All right, we will get to the schedule prediction now after going through the entire offense and defense there, and we'll run through, bring up and share the screen, the entire game-by-game prediction for this Florida State team. As I said, these are the guys that will be kicking off, our college football season. 10 days from recording this. I think it'll be like 8 days from when this podcast is released. But Georgia Tech, that's going to be a tough one. I think Georgia Tech's a team that might finish the year only 6-7 wins, but they're going to have a few big wins and a few surprise wins and be like one of those feisty teams in college football this year. The number is already down to 11.5. I think it was at like 13.5 just a couple weeks ago. So there's some money coming in there on Georgia Tech, line moving down. I'm in Georgia Tech favor. I'm not ready yet to predict an outright upset there, but I think with all the new pieces on offense and the new quarterback coming in, DJU, that could be a tricky spot. So Georgia Tech's a team I'm probably going to take on the spread in that one, but I will give Florida State the benefit of the doubt and give them the first win of the college football season there. Boston College, I think that's a tricky one as well. I was listening to something today. You got to think Boston College all season, they've just been, preparing. All they had to do is prepare for Florida State. Florida State, they have to prepare for Georgia Tech. Then they have to go to travel from Ireland to come back to America. Who knows, the travel schedule, the sleep schedule, everything gets thrown off. They do get a little bit of benefit of the doubt with that game being on Monday and the game being a home game. But Boston College is probably going to have a leg up in terms of preparation on them, I think, and it could be a weird body clock game, and who knows, the outcome of that Georgia Tech game could fare how Florida State comes out in this one. But I will give them the win, but it's another game where I might look at Boston College as a dog there on the spread. The Memphis game, that's going to be an awesome one, I think. Memphis, we talked about them already. They're my group of 5 champion, my group of 5 playoff representative. I have Memphis losing this game. That's the only game I have them losing all year, 11-1. But that's a game too where, I think you might be able to tell by my tone, I'm not sold on this Florida State squad, and talking about it in the first 3 games, saying I'm probably going to fade them in the first 3 against the spread. Memphis has some dudes on offense. Seth Hennigan back at quarterback. That game gets into a shootout. Memphis could go down there and win that game. And if Memphis wins that, they run the table, they'll definitely be that group of 5 representatives. So that's a big one there, but I will give Florida State the benefit of the doubt again at home. A conference game, Florida State versus Cal. That's an awesome one. Cal going across the country. I'll give Florida State the win there. Start out 4-0. This is where I actually have Florida State tripping up on the first time. SMU is going to be a team that wins, I think, 9 to 10 games. Another really high-powered offense. Preston Stone leading the way at quarterback. I think that game has the potential to get into a shootout, and I'm going to trust Stone more over DJU. So Florida State trips off for the first time there. They get to host Clemson. I think that's big on the schedule, being able to host them. The DJU revenge game, if he's going to play good in one game this year, I think it'll be that one. I'll give Florida State the win there. Duke going to be at the bottom of the ACC, I think. I'll give Florida State the win there. Then the Miami game, that's an awesome one. I would figure that's probably at least a top 12 matchup, maybe even a top 10 matchup by the time these 2 teams are meeting up. But Miami at home, I think Miami is the best team on paper in the ACC, and they have the best quarterback in the ACC. I'm going to give Miami the win there. So Florida State already at 2 losses after going undefeated throughout the regular season and winning the ACC title last year. North Carolina, I'll give them a win there. Notre Dame, I'm going to give Florida State another loss here, going to Notre Dame. That's not an easy game. I have Notre Dame going 11-1, running the table after losing to A&M. So that is a spot where I think it's a tough spot for Florida State to go to Notre Dame and win that game. Charleston Southern, give them an easy win there. And then the last game of the season against Florida. Florida, by this point, this will be most likely their 5th ranked game in a row. I think they'll just be worn down. New coach potentially in there already. I'll give Florida State the win there. But so I'm going with a 9-3 season for Florida State. Definitely not making the playoff with that resume. 10-2 potentially they could get in, but I think this is a 9-3 football team this year, and I do not think that they'll be making the playoff. I think their 3 toughest games, arguably on the schedule, SMU, Miami, Notre Dame, all on the road. That's not a benefit there. You could throw Clemson in there as well if you think they'll be, better than SMU, better than Miami, or better than Notre Dame, or they get to host one of them. But I do think DJ cripples this team's potential, and I don't believe in him to be the guy to go out there and win these big games, these close games. The over-under for this Florida State team is 9.5. It's going to be a stay away for me. Besides those 3 games, I think a pretty favorable schedule the rest of the way, where they're going to be favored in all those games at least. Besides these 3 against SMU, Miami, and Notre Dame, I could see him being a dog in all those ones. Who knows about SMU at that point in the season? Still a little early. Florida State might get the benefit of the doubt to be a favorite there. But if they win one of those 3, you cash the over of 9.5. I just think there's too many kind of coin flips in that scenario. I could see a scenario where they do beat SMU, Miami, Notre Dame. They go 2-1 in those games or whatever. But I also could see a scenario where they drop the opener to Georgia Tech. They drop that game to Memphis if it gets into a shootout. There's too many games on the schedule where it's like I could see it going one of each way. There's a few that they're going to be, some undisputed blowouts. Who knows? Florida could surprise too. But I'm just not high on this squad this year. But I'm not going to look to bet one of the totals. 28-1 to win the Natty. Definitely not taking that this year. Plus 140 to make the playoff. Obviously, I'm not taking that. Minus 180 to miss. I think it's a little too juiced up to take. But they're favored to win the ACC at plus 290. And I have them missing the playoff completely. So I'm definitely lower on this Florida State squad, I think, than most people. But that'll do it for this episode of the Beef Up Front podcast. As always, thank you for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, and we'll talk soon.